everybody, and welcome back to a Lobotomy lore video. Alrighty. So, I'm sorta, kinda, almost, kinda-ish recording this right after the previous one. Sorta, kinda-ish. Alright, it's like 2 days later, but still. But still, it's basically right after the other one. If you don't count the, 48 hours that went by in between. So, in the last episode, we went over quite a few abnormalities. We went over one of my personal favorites, being Magical Girl. We still have a lot more to go, but we're gonna have a good time doing it. So, I'm not fully sure who we still have left to go, but we'll figure that out on the fly, because first up is Blue Star. An urgent announcement to all personnel in our company. Lobotomy Corporation supports all club activities that promote positivity. Recently, however, we have received reports that there are group activities plotting unhealthy schemes. Due to constant allegations, we cannot help but take notice of the matter. It is against the company's rules to idolize and or worship certain abnormalities. Nothing is allowed to be sacred in this place, except, of course, for Magical Girl, who is the best. Employees that try to enter the containment unit of specific abnormalities without authorization will face punishment, especially if they are not in charge of said abnormalities. If you feel an impulse to throw yourself into a certain abnormality, that means you are infected. It means that it is in the process of manipulating and dazzling your brain, as do other abnormalities in this place. If this happens, please stop whatever you are doing and seek immediate mental treatment. As you have all passed basic employee training, we hope no one will be foolish enough to be misled. We are releasing the blacklist to the public. Those who are on the list must take 3 days of mental treatment provided by the company and will receive punishment accordingly by their respective Sephira. We are making this list public to bring your attention to the astonishing number of infected employees around you. Please note, calling Emily, who killed herself after breaking into the containment unit of a certain abnormality, a martyr will be treated as non-compliance with the company's rules. On a side note, we would like to praise employee Dylan's courageousness in his rescuing of employee Sophie, who was about to throw herself into a certain abnormality. If you see any of your valuable colleagues displaying this kind of behavior, please promptly report it to the Sephira in charge. Dylan. I don't believe you turned Sophie and us over deliberately. I'm sure you were just worried about Sophie. She's locked up now. I heard that she repeatedly tried to escape, so they tied her to the bed. Tell me, is it wrong to have faith? We are all sinners, and our Blue Star is the only sanctuary that accepts us. We will be cleansed of our sins there. We all go back to that place someday. This is an instinct. You thought Emily died when she threw herself into the star, but she simply returned to her rightful place. She's a martyr. She has become an eternal star. The rise of a star is a brand new beginning. Don't you hear the everlasting sound of the trumpet? When you stand close to the star, you can hear the welcoming cheers and singing. If every employee returns to that place, only Blue Star will remain here. Let us meet again, as stars. Aleph, sound of a star. The star shines brighter as our despair gathers. The weapon's small, evocative sphere fires a warm ray. In the light, everything is equal. At the heart of the armor is a shard that emits an arcane gleam. The gentle glow feels somehow more brilliant than a flashing light. If you look carefully, you can see the place we will all have to return to someday. Porccubus! Time for the head to burst! To be frank, life in this place isn't so great. The company says they provide healthy hobbies, but not many engage people in that notion. Everyone looks for their own escape, be it violence, gambling, gluttony, some other things. I thought I had strength and self-control and discipline compared to others. It did help me live a smoother life. Maybe that's the reason I was assigned to Porccubus's containment unit. Yes, Porccubus, where the lowest of the low employees visit. I've heard a bit about what other employees do in that containment unit. They call it a game of trust. A game of trust. What an elegant thing to name it. According to other employees, it wouldn't be too difficult to become intimate with it. And once I get along with it, I could acquire all of it with ease. They said when the time comes, Porccubus will lean down so that I will easily reach its thorns. It didn't take long until I got to where I could pet it. When I first touched its thorns, it felt quite prickly. It felt like a giant needle penetrated my skin, though there wasn't any bleeding, and the pain went away after a moment. Then, there it was, the most intense happiness you'd ever experience. It'd make your knees weak. When I snapped out of it, I found myself drooling. It scared me, so I didn't go back for a while. Then the situation got worse. You'll get withdrawal systems, like retching or sweating. Different employees show different symptoms. One employee even pulled out all their teeth because they felt like bugs were crawling all over them. How it felt? I can't find the words to describe it. Remember the greatest happiness you've ever felt in your life? This feeling would be hundreds of times better. You say I'm the last employee in charge of Porccubus? That's understandable, as the brain craves more intense stimulation. At first, all I had to do was be lightly pricked by one of the thorns. Now I have to rub my whole body against it to get the same high. I feel like all the blood in my body will rush to my head, eventually bursting it. I've already imagined my head bursting thousands of times, anyhow. I have to get going, it's almost time for work. Actually, I'm drenched with sweat right now, did you notice? Oh, and Porccubus doesn't show any aggression, unlike your speculation. It didn't eat us, or bite our heads off or anything. All the corpses were smiling happily. That's all. It just makes people smile until death. No one is to blame. We have to go through hell every day. We're just having a small taste of heaven. You know what? I feel sorry for you. You've never felt these feelings, and you never will, but you have to interview an employee on the edge like me while pretending to be decent. Now it's time for my head to burst. Good day. H.E. Pleasure. If you grasp for pleasure you cannot endure, you will end up losing yourself. When the powder that falls from the thorns becomes known to the world, people may forever sink into the swamp of intoxication. And the armor has the same description. Melting Love, who I don't have the weapon or armor for, but I will be getting it and eventually returning. This abnormality was created with the idea provided by Tumblebug Backer Mull, a melting slime with a resemblance to humans when inspected closely. Its containment unit is covered in its mucus secretions. Today, I'd like to talk about the recent incident everyone has heard of. That's right, that dreadful incident when an army of slimes took over our facility for minutes. There were several containers left in the lab, which were not properly processed during the experiment related to. If you know about the experiment, you would already know that the contents of those containers are merely useless leftovers that only prove the experiment has failed. Our researchers felt that there was no need to dispose of them. It was obvious that one newbie to the research team had no idea what was in those containers. Employee Mary found the containers of pink slime and felt that they could pose a threat. It is assumed that she thoroughly concealed and kept them in status. If my assumption is correct, the melted object in those containers was probably I became sure of this when I read the passage that described the appearance as that of an adolescent human. I don't know if it was fortunate for us or not, but its memories, including those of the experiment, were completely gone. It could barely speak a word or two. It was also mentally unstable. It became extremely nervous whenever Mary was not present. A brother. Mary had a brother whom she lost during her childhood. It all started when she felt an attachment to the childlike pink slime that followed her around. Mary showed an unprecedented level of decrease in her mental corruption. Indeed, it was extremely unusual. Of course, it was certain that the abnormality somehow affected her in a positive way, but that was the end of the benefits. Her colleagues started noticing her odd behaviors. They tried to ask her about them. It was the right thing to do. They were educated about the potential implications of a steep decrease in mental corruption levels, and understood that a person disappearing every single break time is a dangerous sign. However, Mary didn't say a word to them, and ended up detained in the counseling room until she opened up. Meanwhile, this slimy creature that had forgotten everything instinctively remembered one thing. It had to get out of the facility no matter what. This abnormality once again felt extremely nervous when Mary didn't show up on time. It thought she was in danger. It was then that it decided to escape with her. A rare bond had formed between the two. They cared about each other from the bottom of their hearts. Confined within the counseling room, Mary eventually gave up her right to remain silent and began to reveal what she had done, how she kept the contents inside the container, and how she was able to form a bond with it. However, she couldn't finish her words. This was because she melted in the blink of an eye, moments after signs of an anomaly showed up on her skin. Yes, she quite literally melted in her entirety, and that wasn't the end of it. The slime that once was Mary, a few seconds ago, began to move. It wasn't a difficult task for a fluid creature to slide under the door of the counseling room. Did it have a speck of human rationality? No. Just like a newborn duckling blindly following its mother, it simply moved towards the abnormality. And it wasn't just Mary that turned to slime. Every single employee who made contact with her in some way began to melt too. Those who were questioning her, who had shared a meal with her, who had worked together. Soon, this army of slime began to attack other employees. All for the mother slime, the abnormality they loved. Yes, out of love and love alone, they killed. And my dear employees, I do hope you all didn't forget to put on the gas masks we distributed to you before we entered, did you? I do hope that no one took it off out of boredom or stuffiness. I must inform you all that some of you are already infected by the slime I told you about. We did not give gas masks to some of you. And we did say that it was because we were out of stock. Though, to be truthful, it was just so we could distinguish between those who are infected and those who are not. You may feel fine now, but before an hour passes, your flesh and bones will start to melt. And your mind will disintegrate into pitch-black nothingness. Then, you will begin trying to wreak havoc on our facility. You'll probably, as your first action in your new form, jump at the employee sitting right next to you. All for the mess of slime you so adore. Yes, I know, it's unbelievable. You feel so alive and clear now. Just how on earth could you melt into slime? And yet you will. It's not your fault, of course. Someone among you made contact with the slime abnormality, and you were just the unlucky sap who happened to be around that person. It's meaningless now to determine patient zero. I doubt they had any idea how catastrophic the results of their actions would be. They did it out of pure affection, after all. Finally, those uninfected who are wearing masks, please ensure you pay extra attention to your hygiene and immediately report when you see an employee acting out of the ordinary. You'll simply be infected as well if you attempt to help them. Now, in your desks, there will be a 9mm pistol, all perfectly locked and loaded. What you must do now should be clear. We will not open the doors until the situation is taken care of. If you think this is too cruel, allow me to remind you that this is your job. I hope to see you again once everything has been handled. Punishing Bird. A small and confident bird that punishes the evil, guilty, and all sorts of irreverent people. Some employees have said that it is cute, and the bird mightily flutters its tiny wings. People have been committing sins since long ago.
Why do they commit sins, knowing it's wrong? The small bird wondered. It must be because there's no one to punish people for their misdeeds. If someone takes that role, then no foul act would happen in this world ever again.
With this in mind, the little bird left the forest it had been living in, and never went back.
Death beak.
As if to prove that size doesn't matter when it comes to force, the weapon has high firepower despite its small size. Unleash it on those standing in the way with no hesitation or forgiveness. The bullet's surface is covered with numerous spikes resembling small teeth, so it can inflict quite a bit of pain when it penetrates an enemy. It's sleek without a dent. The suit was originally very small, barely wearable by a child. As more blood stains the armor, the chest plate writhes subtly, as if it were alive. Crumbling Armor. An armor that seems to have been used hundreds of years ago. An engraving on its bottom states, "Life is only granted to those who hold no fear of death." Obviously, putting this armor on is forbidden by company regulations. Note, there have been rumors of employees pretending to put the armor on for fun. Please look into this immediately. This armor was secured from a museum. The information below is the fragments of its legend.
The armor once belonged to General who joined the war during the year of. It was a family heirloom, passed down through many generations. The general always wore this armor to keep himself protected. By a stroke of bad luck, however, an arrow flew into the gap in the armor, killing him instantly. Somehow, the armor was undamaged. After the death of General, the armor was presented to Commander of Battalion 00. The commander was always seen steel-clad each time he set out into battle. During one of his battles, the commander fell from his horse while fleeing from an enemy and died due to a fatal injury upon his skull. Still, the armor once again remained undamaged. There are many others throughout this armor's history who have had their hands on it, and each and every one of them has died in battle. Meanwhile, the armor still kept its pristine condition. Over the years, the armor made its way to a warrior named. He was known for simply keeping the armor in storage, not wearing it for a single battle. Eventually, died of old age after participating in dozens of wars without sustaining a single injury. During his lifetime, the armor's right arm became damaged, but there was no sign of exterior impact. His family later donated the armor to a museum. After running a few tests on the armor, we have come up with the following conclusions. If the armor is worn by a cowardly employee, their chances of fatal injury and death are drastically increased. Inversely, when an employee who holds no fear of death wears it, their chance of injury and death are exceedingly decreased. One of our personal managers suggests an entrance test where interviewers wear the armor and walk around it for 10 minutes. This suggestion was immediately shot down. Life of a daredevil. An ancient sword. Just as its archetype desired, it will be useless in the hands of the frightened. If an employee who's truly prepared for death uses this, any attack can be deflected. However, finding someone who does not fear death will be challenging in a place like this. Fairy Festival. The abnormality is similar to a fairy, having 2 pairs of wings and a small body. They act as a cluster. They use a language we cannot understand to communicate with each other. They follow a few employees around when they enter the containment unit, using their special abilities to heal injuries. Employees call this act the fairies' care. The fairies protect our employees. If you often act out of the goodness of your heart and are a lover of nature, then the fairies will gladly take care of you. Everything will be peaceful while you are under the fairies' care. You can also enjoy the envious glances you get from the other employees. Not that it's important, but what if the fairies don't approach you? Then you should reflect on your life. When Emil and I took shifts entering the fairies' containment unit, the fairies did not hesitate to approach me. Only me. You all know Emil and how he is. Why, just yesterday he refused to share his snacks with me. He was acting all high and mighty. It is a sacred act to be protected by the fairies in any world. However, do not enter their containment unit just to have a bit of fun. If you've read a few books on them, you'll know that fairies dislike those who take advantage of their kindness. The corresponding document is only accessible by employees level 4 and higher. When Walter, who was under the care of the fairies, died in the room of another abnormality, we noticed some anomalies. His stomach and face were ripped off,
and his eyeballs and organs were damaged as if they were eaten by something. Moreover, the containment unit Walter was found in was for an abnormality that uses psychological attacks. Meanwhile, the fairies had someone's blood and flesh smeared all over their mouths. We did not bother to examine them to find out whose flesh and blood it was. In our world, there are few outcomes that result from perfect kindness. Having fairies that live in a forest that visit you just because they like you, or that you've done so many good deeds, is only something that happens in fairy tales. Even though we know this truth, we still sometimes become deluded, thinking that the fairies' care is happening because of all the good deeds we've done, or that the fairies are favoring us because there's something that makes us more special than the other employees. The fairies are no more than carnivorous monsters, and their protection is their method to keep the meat fresh. When an employee enters another containment unit, they gobble them up in fear that they would lose their food to something else. However, the employees were greatly satisfied by the fairies' care, and we saw a drastic decrease in the accident rate, so we deemed it unnecessary to tell the truth to the employees. Zayn Wingbeat. Graced by the fairies, the weapon radiates a pale light. Despite its cute shape, the ego itself is rather heavy. The sprouting wings are as mischievous as fairy pranks. Those two pairs of flimsy wings will obviously never move. Wearing this ego may make it easier to receive the care of the fairies. The Old Lady. An abnormality taking the form of an old and feeble woman. Anytime someone enters its containment unit, it will talk to that person. What it tells differs from time to time, but it will always commence with, "Dearie, dearie, would you like to hear a story?" This story could be a lullaby, an unspecified poem, nursery rhyme, a common children's story, or something entirely new. It knows every children's story and will not stop recounting until the listener finally leaves. Excerpt from Counseling Records. She may be the loneliest of all the abnormalities. She's filled with loneliness and tells her tales to fill that void. Well, every story needs a listener. When someone enters her room, she'll try to fill that void. Of course, listening to her is a very dangerous thing. She knows every story on Earth, and even those that cannot possibly exist. Our minds can't cope with such a thing. She could fry your brain in an instant. Teth, solitude. A strong sense of loneliness still lingers, even in the form of an ego. Its bullets create a void that cannot be filled on the victim's soul, rather than a wound upon their flesh and bones. It was a rusty weapon from the beginning. To hide the soft side of your heart, arm yourself with loneliness. Give all you've got or nothing at all. The suit will protect the wearer's fragile mind. Fragment of the Universe. An abnormality that resembles a child's doodles. Originally, it had no stable form. Its shape would continually morph. To this day, its aspects still change, albeit at a much slower pace. Component analysis has revealed that the abnormality consists of matter that does not exist on Earth. It is notable for its metaphysical appearance that one cannot explain with words. It often shows incomprehensible linguistic activity. Ooh, yellow tongue-tied with that one. One employee tried to decipher its speech, see document number 1, employee David's song, but their mental contamination level rose beyond the limit within several days. They suffered severe psychosis and had to be quarantined. The abnormality's tentacles, which are quite different from what we consider the average tentacle, for simplicity's sake we monikered them as tentacles, can pierce through the barrier of humanity. Employees impaled by the tentacles will suffer semi-permanent brain damage. When the abnormality escapes its containment unit, it will emit noises in the corridor. As the sounds it makes have what could be considered a melody and syllables,
we consider it singing. However, none of our staff can precisely remember it, given that most of the time they're unable to describe it due to their serious brain damage. Those who were within 100 meters of the singing called it a sound unheard of in this world. Because of these descriptions, we've titled it Echoes from the Beyond. See document number 2, Singing. Experiment 1, the possibility of communication. We have determined that the abnormality has an intelligence similar to, or even higher than, that of humans, and gave it a simple language learning course. As a result, a crude communication by combining words has become possible. The following is a segment of the communication record with the abnormality. Question: are all of your kind similar in appearance? Negative. Outside. Child. See. Picture. Face. Happy. Change. Form.
Why have you come here?
Knowledge. Share. Human. Why do you want to share your knowledge with us? Understanding. Knowledge. Moment. No. Universe. Coincidence. Negative. None. This section is an attempt to decipher the conversation with the abnormality. 1. It based its form on a picture drawn by a child. It changed its form because the child's expression while drawing it was happy. 2. It came here to share its species' knowledge with us. The moment we fully understand that knowledge, we will know their ultimate goal. 3. There is no such thing as a coincidence in the universe. Experiment 2. An experiment on laughter. After watching a video about for 30 minutes, the abnormality understood the concept of laughing. After that, when employees entered its containment unit to work with it, it would sometimes emit a strange noise with what appeared to be the shape of a smile on its face. It looked like it was mimicking laughter. Experiment 3. Comprehension of symbols. We taught it the meaning of various symbols along with language. Among them was the shape of a heart. The symbol provoked a distinct change from the abnormality, showing the abnormality a picture of a heart. This is the symbol of the heart. Many people believe that emotions come from the heart, and this symbol is used to express positive emotions or a liking towards someone. Afterwards, several symbols resembling hearts were seen on the abnormality's body. It seemed to understand that the symbol could be used to express friendliness towards humans. Combining the results of the previous 2 experiments, we can confirm that this abnormality is non-hostile to humans and wishes to become friends. Document number 1. Employee David's song. David was famous in his department for his attempts to communicate with the fragments of the universe. He was an intellectual who enjoyed reading philosophical books and gazing at the stars. He held interest in the abnormality, and as such he got the job. He researched its language and behavior purely out of personal interest. So what became of David? Eventually, he succeeded in entering the domain of the fragment of the universe. However, it was obvious that his small brain couldn't withstand it. He was transferred to the psychiatric ward and died of starvation while singing an unrecognizable song. This is why the abnormality's voice cannot be revealed to the public. Audio record. Echoes in the Universe. Currently removed. Document 2. Singing. Why didn't you tell me earlier that the abnormality was responsible for their condition? I have no idea if there's any pattern, but they all show the same strange behavior on the exact same days. Can you imagine a group of patients staring at the sky with dazed faces, wailing strange noises in the corridor at night while everyone is asleep? I had such a difficult time persuading the other patients that they must have been practicing for the company's upcoming Halloween event. Psychiatric treatment and medicine won't help. Coming, still coming. They keep repeating these words, and anything else they utter is not from any language we know. I think sending them to a general hospital was an unwise decision. Doctor from the record deleted. Ward. Teth. Fragments from somewhere. Do not attempt to understand it. Just use it. The spear often tries to lead the wielder into a long and endless realm of the mind, but they must try to not be swayed by it. It took a different form every time it was produced, but we managed to stabilize the gestalt after a lot of effort and trouble. There's a rumor that the spear emits a bright light when it hears an echo from another world. Sometimes the wielder may see things we have long forgotten. However, the details of these cannot be specified, as each employee seems to see something different. It took a different form every time we produced it, but the description is the same. Void Dream. I wished to sleep eternally, so don't bother trying to wake me up again. An abnormality whose form sports a goat's fur and horns. It is not unique in regards to its appearance, with the exception of several colorful eyes embedded upon its body. Gaining information about the abnormality is expected to be difficult due to its ceaseless slumber. The following counseling log illustrates how Void Dream's ability to make any person slumber psychologically affects the employees. The results indicate we cannot utilize this ability to reduce the mental corruption of our staff. Please refer to this record for further research. Please, make it quick. I gotta sleep. Is that because of the abnormality? Yeah, I remember seeing something that looked like a sheep pass by me and, well, I fell asleep. Since then, I've been like this. Do you remember the dream you had back when that occurred? Oh, I could never forget that dream. Could you please tell me as much about it as you can? It was a happy, wonderful dream. Sweet dream. That's all the words I need to describe it. Heck, I even felt glad to be working for this company. And I saw a guy who's not with me anymore. He was right next to me. Because of that, I couldn't get a hold on myself when I woke up. I see. I've heard a little about you from your other employees recently. All of them say that the only thing you do outside of work hours is sleep. Can you please tell me why? Don't you understand what I'm talking about? I just want to have that dream again. A dream where I was there with him, recalling those happy moments, but I couldn't go back no matter how many times I slept. I slept and slept and slept and slept and slept and slept and slept, and yet... I see. I'd advise you take some rest in your room. You said everyone who woke up after hearing that abnormality sound went mad. People think it's because they all had some horrible nightmare they couldn't handle, but it's actually the other way around. The reality they had to wake up to was so terrible that the soul gave up on the waking life. As you know, time flows differently in dreams. A mere instant of waking life constitutes an eternity in the dream world. Maybe if Void Dream were to put me asleep again, I might have that wonderful dream anew. I'll prescribe you some sleep medicine. I assure you that'll help you sleep. Please get some rest for now. Finally, you will be prohibited from entering the abnormalities containment unit from now on. A demon must change its shape to deceive others. A demon must grant sweet dreams to deceive others. A crack appears in the human mind when it is shown the dream it yearns for. A demon will never miss this chance to bring one to their doom. Don't say such complicated things. Don't say those scary words. I just want to grant people sweet dreams. Grant them the enrapturing dreams they want. Those who have had my dreams are destined to come back to me. So just close your eyes.
In the dream, your smile was beaming, and we chatted with such liveliness. When I came back to the waking life, I realized I was back in a world in which you no longer existed. I felt a void as big as that fleeting happiness I felt in my dream fill my heart. I closed my eyes and forced myself to sleep, but morning was still to come no matter what. I think that's when my soul started to crumble. In fact, I was already broken since the day I parted with you. But I've only been acting fine. My soul was already shattering itself into fragments after the passing of that day. Once I saw you again, my yearning for you began to bear down too heavily. I couldn't ever go back to my old self again. Counseling, rest, all of it was useless. I spent days by myself, agonizing, until I finally realized it. It lured me with an unforgettable bait. That was the price for eating away my nightmares. And then it left nothing but void, so I would have no choice but to return to it. Then, I have lost to it. I don't want to know anything anymore. Please, eat my dreams. Death engulfing dream. We must be awake at all times. Not even the sweet dreams in a sound sleep are allowed here. This weapon shall wake those who swim in such illusions. And when the crying stops, dawn will break. The soft wool is so warm and cozy it makes you drowsy. The more entrancing it is, the bigger the disappointment will be when the dawn breaks. The longing grows so deep when I wake at the crack of dawn, yet all I can do is wait for you with my eyes closed. You, who will never come. All-around helper. A white cleaning robot with distinct red eyes that look like a pair of buttons. Or you could also say it looks like the Reddit logo. It always keeps its surroundings neat and tidy. It was originally a mass-produced helper robot intended for domestic use. The writing on its back says, "An innovative invention that can clean, cook, and even serve as light security using various tools attached to its limb. Built to perform efficiently and quickly. Manufactured by Inc." It recognizes a bad mood as a sign that the surroundings are dirty, and promptly enters cleaning mode. It will alert its status by stating lines such as, "Contamination detected, commencing cleaning." However, the limbs are equipped with sharp instruments instead of cleaning supplies. Rumor has it they were supposed to be used for cutting meat, but they were made to respond to the clean command by accident. There's no way to confirm whether this is true. It is determined that the screaming humans make after it cleans is a sign of a job well done, and a prompt to continue its cleaning. An audio record found within the robot. Oh, it's the new helper robot.
Let me see. I want to see.
You want to touch? You want to touch it? Then try turning it on and play with it. A phone rings. I'll be right back after I get the phone, okay? Sounds of buttons being pressed. Helper robot. Hello, I am your friendly helper robot. How may I serve you?
Cleaning. I want to help Bonnie cleaning.
Environment contamination 70%. Filth level mild. Commencing cleaning mode.
Wow, it's cleaning. It's clean.
After a few moments of shrieking, the power abruptly went out. HE Grinder MK4. A sharp sawtooth of the grinder makes a clean cut through its enemy. Its operation is simple and straightforward, but that doesn't necessarily make it easy to wield. As machines have no morals of their own, there was no clear boundary between good and evil. This disregard for value is precisely reflected by the weapon's reliable dicing force. People used to be afraid of machines in the beginning, but a mechanical rebellion soon became a myth of the past in our world. The otherwise sleek coat is covered with bloodstains of an unknown origin. Some employees may brag about the bloodstain as a symbol of courage, but it has been there since the archetype was extracted. Perhaps it is the commemoration of all the tragedies of the past and future. People used to be afraid of machines in the beginning, but a mechanical rebellion soon became a myth of the past in our world. Alrighty, so that is going to do it for this episode of Lobotomy Lore. You also get to see when exactly I recorded this while I was playing catch up, so that's pretty fun. Just a neat little detail for any of you who are interested. This one was a lot of fun. Lot of lore. We're gonna have a lot more lore coming down the line, but at the very least, we got quite a few interesting ones. Fairies, aesthetically, are so adorable. Oh, I can't get. They're so fat. They can't help it. They get hungry, and then they eat. But that is going to do it for this episode of Lobotomy Lore, so thank you guys so much for watching. Be sure and let me know what you guys thought of this episode, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.